Thank you, Dan, and thank you for taking the time to come see me fumble through this presentation today. My name is Natalie Nicholson. Like Dan said, I do the social media for 1 Million Cups Greater Hartford. So for those of you familiar with me, you probably recognize me as the person that gets in front of the camera and does a lot of pictures and is very obnoxious and makes the floorboards creak in the cigar lounge. So if anyone feels the need to stand up and get in front of the stage, by all means, feel free. Yeah, but I am also the treasurer and a co-founder of My Tia's Place, a nonprofit. So without further ado, so here's our mission statement. My Tia's Place is a 501c3 public charity that is aiming to provide affordable housing and support services for community college students. And our rough strategic plan right now stretches from the present to approximately 2030. All right, so that's our mission statement. But I think our founder and president, Carol Lopez, really gets into the core dream and like the operational motivation behind My Tia's Place. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this right off the slide here. Our vision is to create sustainable, supportive housing and food security solutions so students can remain enrolled and succeed. We lead with integrity, ethics, and respect, and we believe that every student is worthy of their dignity while attending school. No student should have to choose between eating, sleeping, and obtaining an education. And so the reason that Carol is so passionate about solving some of these issues of housing insecurity and food insecurity and homelessness is that while she was at Manchester Community College, which is the community college I attended, she went through a lot of those things. So she was homeless for a pretty substantial amount of time, was struggling to make ends meet. Now, thankfully, with assistance from the MCC Foundation, which is a charitable foundation attached to the community college, she was able to make rent and eventually graduate. Right now, she's enrolled at Palm Beach State College in Florida, and she's pursuing her bachelor's in human services. I would say her experience with homelessness and sort of the mental toll that took on her, as well as the physical toll, is really the driving force behind why she's trying to make sure that no students that attend Manchester Community College or any college or university in Connecticut should have to deal with those issues again. And I'd also say that I think the fact that she survived and also the fact that she is succeeding and to such a grand extent is definitely a large motivating factor, both for the organization and for the team of directors in general. All right, so this is our team. My Tia's Place was founded by a group of one current and several other former Manchester Community College alumna. We're an all-woman-led team, and we represent a diverse range of ages, races, ethnicities, and sexual orientations. So, of course, we pride ourselves in that diversity, and we also pride ourselves on the depth and breadth of perspective that brings to the table. It really helps keep us mission-oriented. All right, so I'll take a quick second to go over our core values. We place student dignity, equity, and respect above all else. Through innovation and change, we aim to systematically elevate the quality of life and academic outcomes for students, and we are deliberately student-centric. So I really want to nail this point home. Right now, we are the only 501c3 in Connecticut exclusively dedicated to providing support services and affordable housing options to community college students. So we were founded by students, we're led by students, and we're operated by students, and we are intensely proud of that. All right, so I'm going to jump into a quick environmental scan here. And I think in a state like Connecticut, when I talk to people, especially for a state that's as wealthy as it is and with as high of, let's say, an income per capita as it does, I think people are really surprised as to the extent and the damage that the silent epidemic of community college student homelessness and housing insecurity is causing. So I'll just go off some of the stats on the screen here. In the 2024 to 2025 academic year, Connecticut recorded a decade-high 5,463 students experiencing homelessness. On top of those over 5,000 students, over 3,400 students were doubled up in shared housing. So that may be other students living with family or friends, couch surfing, anything like that. And unfortunately, according to national housing statistics, 36% of all college and university students experience housing insecurity and 9% experience homelessness. And you're going to find that just in large part because of their lower income backgrounds, that community college students are going to be grossly overrepresented in those 36 and 9% statistics. And so we come to the point that there is an immediate pressing need for affordable housing infrastructure for community college students specifically in Connecticut and across the U.S. All right, so taking a look at housing insecurity and poverty rates, we are Manchester-based, and right now we're focused on serving Manchester Community College, or they call it CT State Community College Manchester now, but serving them specifically. Manchester's housing insecurity rate is around 11%, and approximately 1 in 25 Connecticut renters faced eviction. So it paints a very nasty picture, especially with the macroeconomy as it is right now. Looking at poverty rates, approximately 12 to 12.5% of Manchester residents live below the poverty line. Manchester has an estimated 16,000 low-income residents, and that represents about 27% of the population. And again, unfortunately, because of socioeconomic factors, you're going to find that community college students are grossly overrepresented in those statistics. As far as rental prices are concerned, the median gross rent in Manchester is approximately $1,384 per month, and renters' median incomes are significantly lower. And I mean, you think about the traditional image of a community college student when it comes to mind. They're taking either part-time or full-time classes. Maybe they have family or children to take care of at home, and they may be working, and unfortunately they commonly are working 1 or 2 or 3 full-time jobs just to make ends meet. And there are simply not enough hours in the day for community college students to be able to afford rent at Manchester prices. And the statewide comparison, unfortunately, Manchester's poverty rate is higher than the overall Connecticut average. And so again, we get back to the fact that community college students in Manchester cannot afford to rent in today's housing environment. And so one other thing I'll touch on that's not in the environmental scan, but we touch on this quite a bit, is FICO scores. So coming out of high school, and maybe you have a community college student that's been in school for a semester or 1 year, so 2 semesters. So, young adults around the age of 18, 19, maybe 20. Most of these individuals are coming out of high school with either no credit history, or if they've been in community college for a year or 2 and they have, they need to make ends meet, they may be taking care of family members. They may have amassed a large amount of credit debt just to make ends meet. And so having an established credit history and a decent to good FICO score is one of the primary roadblocks to getting the traditional community college student into a normal rental property situation. And so that's just another massive hurdle for these students to overcome. All right, so the support systems that My TU's Place aims to provide and the eventual benefits. So as far as what we're trying to give to students, we want to cover the whole proverbial Maslow's hierarchy of needs for them. So we have material support. At Manchester Community College, there is a food pantry called the Cougar Pantry and a clothing closet called the Career and Clothing Closet. They've been in operation for a very long time. They're very well funded and well stocked. I would say one of the best in Connecticut. I'm a student at the University of Hartford, and I've taken a look at their food pantry as well. It's also quite impressive, but I'd say Manchester's is just a slight step above. Not meaning to throw shade there. But yeah, and so the reason we like these guys is that they have an open door, no questions asked policy. So students can come in whenever they want, take whatever they need, whether it be for themselves and for their family. And so it's a fantastic resource for us to direct students in need to. Again, continuing on with material support, we obviously have subsidized housing, access to public transportation, and referrals to external support systems, and I'll get into that last point on the next slide. All right, moving on to financial support. So we have gift cards, enhanced access to grants and scholarships, and that would be in concert with whatever the aforementioned MCC Foundation can offer them, and then reductions to student cost of living. So this would be for students that may have a stable or semi-stable rental situation but are struggling to pay for certain months or, for example, make a security deposit. As far as individual benefits are concerned, so My TU's Place, beyond the material and financial support systems, is really looking to provide an all-encompassing, comprehensive quality of life upgrade to student life and academics. So we want to host in-house extracurricular programs that would increase professional financial literacy and leadership development skills. And then, of course, you have the general improvements to physical, psychological, and social well-being that come from having those material and financial support systems in place, and that leads to individual excellence in school. As an organization, we're trying to make our model as adaptable and scalable to future growth as possible, and eventually what we'd like to see, if we can service enough students and enough community colleges across Connecticut, is an improvement in retention and graduation rates, which is really the end goal at a systematic level. All right, so for core operations, I've divided them into 4 tiers, we're going to call them, over 3 different program timelines, and we're going to go from the top down. So our partnership with CT State Community College Manchester, that's the community college in Manchester, and that's really our bread and butter right there. So we have an excellent relationship with staff and faculty, high-level administrators, student leaders, and of course the students. So we're going to be on the ground or talking to people we know in the know to identify and direct at-risk community college students to those on-campus resources I mentioned. So that's the Cougar Pantry, the MCC Foundation, and the Career and Clothing Closet. Separately, what we're trying to do right now is establish a network of third-party support service providers. So once MyTIA's Place has screened and onboard at-risk college students into our database, so to say, we're going to connect them with a network of third-party nonprofit organizations, charities, and support service providers in the Greater Hartford region and in Manchester. So I'll say that the fantastic thing about the Greater Hartford region is that there is already a very well-funded and diverse range of support services for at-risk populations and minority groups. The unfortunate problem is that they simply don't have the knowledge or the expertise or the on-the-ground experience to be able to address the community college student homelessness and housing insecurity problem by themselves. So we're trying to act as a nexus between students in need at the community college and direct them to third-party support services providers that can render aid immediately but might not know that these students even exist in the first place. So the last two tiers pertain to housing. The third here is temporary crisis housing is what we're calling it. And so we're trying to shelter those critically vulnerable students that are homeless now in local hotels, motels, and Airbnb rental properties for a period of 1 to 2 or 3 weeks. And so that would be grant subsidized, and we would work out partnerships with these properties to house them at a discounted rate. And the hope is that these partnerships would be mutually beneficial. So we'd like to house students during low traffic times where revenue may be lower for these locations, and we'd be able to get students in more quickly. And then finally, at a program timeline of 2 to 5 years, really the core operational motivation behind MyTIA's Place is to be able to provide affordable student housing at a long-term scale by owning and operating a multifamily housing property. And so we'd be able to provide safe, affordable housing for a period of 2 years. And that 2-year period correlates with the average amount of time it takes for a community college student to finish community college. One of our strengths, we'd say, though, is flexibility, and I would know myself, so I dropped out of UConn in 2020, went to Manchester Community College in 2022, and it took me 5 semesters, so 2.5 years to finish, and we'd be very flexible with working with our students to accommodate those needs. All right, so I'd just like to take a moment to highlight a recent event we had. We hosted this at the community college about a month and a half ago. We actually hosted it during commencement, so there were all kinds of shenanigans getting us a room and getting us scheduled. The great thing about that was there were a lot of staff and faculty and administrators that stopped by. So I'd just like to point out some of our favorite people that have shown a willingness to engage with MyTIA's Place. So right there in the glasses and the blonde hair, we have Gabriella Curry. She donated over 100 articles of clothing to our organization. We were able to distribute those clothes to students in need during that event, and we really love that. We have Renee Lambert. She is a student entrepreneur. I believe she's currently at the University of Hartford or attended it and graduated. She is a published author. She came back to Manchester just to attend this event. Now, as far as CT State Community College Manchester administrators, staff, and faculty, in the tropical shirt, we have TJ Barber, and all the way to the right, we have Dwayne Hunt. They are the Dean and Associate Dean of Student Development, respectively, at CT State Manchester. All the way to the left, we have Jordan Knight. He's the founder of Modern Homes. He's doing some really great work with advocating at planning and zoning commissions. And then we have, in the pink, Shakira Acevedo. She's the director at Leaders for Educational and Advocacy and Diversity. They're a very large nonprofit in East Hartford and one of their foremost support service providers. And then we have Jennifer Greer, the senior program director at Community Health Resources. So again, one of the largest and most prominent support service providers in the Greater Hartford area. And so it goes to show that we have a large and diverse base of people that are willing to support us. All right, so as far as our operational objectives is concerned, I have it divided into 3 steps. So there's identification and onboarding, our near-term objectives, and our long-term objectives. I'm going to take us to the next slide, actually. So not to beleaguer a point that really shouldn't be that complicated, we go from the start to the end here. MyTIA's Place, we coordinate and communicate with the community college. We identify and onboard at-risk community college students into our database, and then we evaluate their support service needs on a case-by-case basis. If long-term support services aren't necessary, we're directing them to our pre-existing network at the community college as well as the other external third-party support service providers. So that's those 2 boxes there. If long-term support services are necessary, that's when we move on to the second column, which is the temporary crisis housing, and then the third column, which is our end goal at the period of 2 to 5 years, which is to be able to purchase, rehabilitate, or construct a multifamily housing property and provide a number of in-house support services from there as well. All right, so that's the basic idea of the operations that we're currently investing in and have planned for My Tia's Place. What can 1 Million Cups do for us? So shared knowledge and experience in 501c3 operations and the residential real estate industry. I want to say I'm incredibly proud of the team and everything that we've accomplished thus far. That said, at the end of the day, we are current community college and university students. And while we bring a lot to the table, of course, knowledge is power, and knowledge experience in this industry is what we need. Secondly, partnerships and collaborations with like-minded organizations and support service providers. So again, we're getting back to that matrix of connections that we want to be able to build so that we can refer community college students in need of support services to those providers. So if you know anyone that would be interested in supporting our organization on an individual basis or have connections to any of those 501c3s or charities that we might not know about that would be willing to partner with us, maybe sign on partnership grants, that would be incredible. And then finally, we simply need assistance with our fundraising and grant writing processes. So I'm going to leave off with a quote that our president put here: "You must be the change you wish to see in the world." We're trying to make change for our fellow community college students, and I hope that y'all will be able to join us and lend a helping hand in this journey with us. Thank you.
Really appreciate that. I knew you were a ringer.
So, thank you for the presentation. Great job.
Thank you.
And sounds like well, let me ask this a question. What is the most important single statistic that you are looking to move? Is that the increasing graduation rates, or is there a different metric that you're looking at?
I'd say we have several post-graduation KPIs. I'll say that while our students would be with our program, we'd be looking at things like attendance. So obviously they need to be in school. That's very important. And then grades. But I think, as we all know, grades and GPA are oftentimes a very poor indicator of actual student success and performance. I'd say our main KPIs would be graduation rates and activity after they graduate from college compared within our program to Manchester Community College and then the colleges and universities statewide in general.
Okay. So with that, understanding more about, I think the statistics you highlighted in terms of students facing insecurity is startling and shocking, would be to many people. Taking that one step further and looking at what are the graduation rates of that population versus the general population, and then that could give you an ability to quantify the opportunity costs that you're looking to offset or prevent. So it could be another way to try to attract either philanthropy or grants from the school, because they're already investing a considerable amount in students, and then seeing that investment squandered, unfortunately.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a line of inquiry we're definitely looking to pursue. And then on the other hand, we're leaning pretty hard into individual student testimony, because I think that speaks the most closely to people that want to do philanthropic work and just don't know what these students are going through, which is why I lead with the example of our president. So she's kind of the baseline for homelessness and housing insecurity in community colleges, and we're trying to build off of not only her story, but the many, many unfortunate stories of other community college students in similar situations.
Yeah, the silent homeless problem in terms of people that just sleep in their cars or people that are couch surfing, and we all just sort of assume that everything's all right because it's not a crisis.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Have you considered employment and internships as another metric to look at, or is that a little bit outside the scope of what you're focusing on right now?
I would say for right now, that's outside of our scope, but I'll say that in a number of years, once we do have our core program of in-house affordable housing and support services established, then we would probably treat post-graduation employment, like I said, as a very relevant KPI. Yeah.
housing partnerships, what's that journey looking like today? Do you have any partnerships, or is it growing? Or like just where are you with creating an environment or network for the housing crisis?
So I'll say that the reason I staged the core operations in 4 tiers is that the ones at the top are much more easily accessible than the bottom. So the first tier is our relationship with the community college, Manchester Community College, and that's already very tight. We're working very hard to establish that network of third-party support service providers. So Shakira Acevedo from LEAD, they're, like I said, one of the foremost support service providers in East Hartford, which is relatively close to Manchester, definitely within driving distance, and a lot of East Hartford students are going to Manchester Community College. She was a personal acquaintance of our president, and she is definitely willing to help us out in many regards there. I'll say we are in the seed stage of really getting that network off the ground as far as actionable connections are concerned. But I mean, I would say one of our greatest strengths is that we have very strong personal and business connections in both the greater Hartford region and in Manchester, so we've got a very strong base to build off of.
Are you looking for partnerships with, let's say, housing developers or investors that may renovate housing, like multifamily housing? So that's kind of where I'm at. Are you still in like finding partners, or do you already have partners? Like, what's the process to connect? So, if, like, I work with clients that are heavy in the real estate business, and may be open to that idea of rehabbing a home, and it can fit between 4 to 6 people, and so that's where I'm going into what's that partnership process look like?
Yeah, I'll say definitely we are looking for those partnerships actively, and I'll admit that, again, just because of our knowledge base, real estate, and investment in terms of that nature really isn't any of our specialties, so we're definitely trying to find those connections, and if you could point us in the right direction, that would be incredible.
Yeah, let's connect. All right, before I leave.
Awesome, thank you.
Similarly, challenge to show traction with new nonprofits, especially if your goal is a large capital acquisition. So how are you looking to show traction or growth? Can't show profits, don't have profits. Can't show revenue, not really going for revenue. So building on what Eric was mentioning, your partner network, however large it is, are people that have invested and believed in your vision and agree with you. So I think you can highlight more of those to show this is a growing movement. You've got the either letters of intent or agreements to work with people. You have a partner network. You're looking to, maybe you've got some numbers. So some way to connect the dots in traction.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say we're working on that, and again, it's a little hard because we're all currently university or community college students. We all work, so progress is, I think, always a little slower than we like. But we are working our way towards having those numbers and those partnerships to be able to highlight them.
Great.
Sorry, one more. Can you talk a little bit about how you're planning to make money? So are you planning on solely relying on grants and kind of philanthropy, or is there a way to kind of make money so that way you could invest in the future and continue this, even though it's a nonprofit, right? You're going to need money to support people in the future and kind of grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very relevant question just because of the the local and federal grant landscape right now. It's tough. Unfortunately, it's very tough. So I'll say that we would be primarily reliant on grants, fundraising, and donations for the first 3 tiers of operations. We're hoping to get to owning our own affordable housing property as soon as humanly possible, and for that, we would like to turn a slight profit, but that would be we would arrange the financing in such a way to where students paying for these 2-year leases are paying well below the Manchester average rent per month. I can't give you an exact number right now, but the number we floated was around $800 to $900 or $1,000 per month, which is approximately 35 to 40% lower than the average right now. And so for that operation, we would like to pass break even, we'll say, possibly amortized over however many years it takes to construct and finance the multifamily.
Have you run the numbers on like the public grant opportunities available and then perhaps prioritized, where you want to get that funding from? Or what you think is, most promising or most likely to keep you guys afloat?
That's, again, when I mentioned our grant writing processes, identifying and zeroing in on the right ones that we should be focused on, that's something that we're chugging our way along through right now. But yes, if you would have any advice or expertise in that area, that's exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, I don't have expertise, but yeah.
Thanks, Natalie. This was very informative. We need to have probably 50 more people in here hear this story, so maybe you'll come back. You may have mentioned this in the beginning. Can you talk about how long you guys have been around, but also what is that, how do you identify that student body and the journey that they're going through so that you can show the value for those individuals? Can you just kind of, how do you find them? What is that experience like for them? Can you just talk about that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as our general timeline, we received our 501c3 certification a little over a year ago now, actually. So we just celebrated that 1-year anniversary. We received that certification in August. I'd say we've been in the ideation or the dream stage, we'll call it, as far as a year and a half or a year and a quarter before then. And so again, connecting with these community college students in need, I would say really hinges now on the staff and faculty that we know. So really it's the professors and adjunct faculty that connect closest with students when we're not there to talk to students directly. Manchester has a lot of really good academic resources. They have their academic support center, and the cross-section between low-income students in need of these services and the students that are attending the academic support center is somewhat large. So that's a pool that we're able to identify. But yes, so our relationship, like I said, with professors, adjunct faculty, staff that administer academic support programs at the community college, and then administrators, as well as I'll say staff in the various mental health and psychology departments who have been very, very helpful in working with us and have helped us run some of the events on campus. I would say those are our main funnel. They can talk to students directly, distribute business cards for us. We're also planning on surveying students at the community college, and I personally would like to issue multiple surveys, perhaps at universities too, for a wider range of testimonials. The tough part about that is that everything needs to be, completely anonymized, depersonified, and within the scope of CT State Community College's internal review board. So it requires an additional degree of separation that makes it hard to connect with students directly through those surveys. But again, if we're working with those staff and faculty members to help promote those surveys, then everything kind of comes together and works itself out.
So in the end, you are relatively new,
Yes.
right? And ideally, to this gentleman, bring housing, owning property is a huge piece of the goal of where you want to get to and to help the students themselves become more equipped with everyday life that perhaps some of us in this room have never, ever had to experience, right? The ability to find food, and that housing gives them that element. I think it's kind of impressive that I didn't realize that there were that many students who are going to college and are unhoused. Yeah, you see these things on TV, but ultimately you want to get to that housing. You're relatively new, so how you generate the excitement, for lack of a better word, you're still working towards, creating the connections, and then getting the appropriate funding, because you're a nonprofit, so you can make 10 million, but 10 million comes in, 10 million has to go out.
Right.
That's the rule of nonprofits, right? Is to get to that level.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
Long road ahead, but we're confident we'll get there.
Yeah, no.
Have you, in the year that you've been operating, have you helped students?
Yeah, so we've run multiple events at the community college in Manchester, and those have been primarily clothing distribution events. So we have a lot of clothing donations from motivated, just individuals in the Manchester community, so individual stakeholders. We get a lot of clothing coming in, and we like to distribute that to students directly. What we can't distribute to students directly goes to the clothing and career closet at Manchester Community College.
And like gift cards that you mentioned, you've handed those out at this point?
That we have not done now.
Okay.
But we're planning events in the near future, so hopefully towards Q4 of this year, before we get to Thanksgiving or Christmas, where we'll be able to do things like that.
Maybe probably not using pictures, but those, what have those students used the clothing for, if you can gather that? It's just that narrative around the success that you've already had, just knowing that they're wearing a sport. I know at the University of Hartford, I was at a mock interview, and I know a few of them had some of those clothing on when they were in front of me. But just having that traction of success that you're already experiencing and letting that be known to a group like this is a pretty powerful testimonial itself.
Absolutely.
So, building off of that, so even though you've been in a year and a half, and some of these things might be considered soft tracking, what is the thought process of tracking something like, okay, people put clothes in there, the students received the clothes, what the impact is? So it's building on that testimony. If they received a gift card for something, what was that? So the things that you are providing, what is the thinking of tracking those elements to illustrate success, whatever realm that you deem success, because it does help the story. What's the thinking around that?
I guess I would say, because we're trying to be as personable and as private with these students' information as possible, that would be individual follow-up. So that would be either me, our president when she has time, or any of the other directors that are working. So we have a group of 5 people right now. And so we have roles and we have titles, but everything is really a group effort. So following up with whether it's phone calls, texts, emails, it's a group effort. So that's the way we'd be tracking individual
A
progress.
huge part of success is looking the part. If you're helping these students look the part, that's monstrous. You know what I mean? Just,
Yeah.
You think it's a small step, but it's a pretty big deal.
Building on that, to be able to show that you've had X number of events, or you've collected Y number of pieces of clothing, you've done X number of events, distributed to Y number of students, and find some metric in terms of whether it's employment or number of interviews that they've attended, but something that you can say, we gave them the confidence in the wardrobe, and therefore something. And being able to draw that line between these metrics to a better outcome, that would be a fantastic slide, and it's work that you're already doing, but you're too humble to brag about it.
We will definitely, we have a lot of pictures, I'll say, so we'll definitely throw up a couple more slides for the next time I'm back here, I guess.
In the fall semester.
Something like that.
Do we have any other questions, comments?
You present very well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I hope the stress doesn't show.
No.
it did not.
But it's a room full of many familiar faces, so that eases me a little.
Phenomenal. Thank you.
Awesome.
Natalie,
Thank you.
very much.